Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I had a dream about that girl again. Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Special thanks to our friends at Netflix Canada for letting us watch this series early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, video games, and all things geek-centric. Joining me for today's review, we've got our own League of Evil X's. It's Justin Lawrence versus Darcy Hudson. Fight!
That was so vicious. I love it.
Yeah,
I don't know who's
awesome.
X. Who do we have as
a common
X's,
X?
as a common
I'm not
X,
sure.
or is it you? Did we like some point like are you the one?
No,
like,
am I Ramona?
I have not.
I think you're the Ramona of our life. I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
Wow.
You're more of a Wallace,
Darcy
if anything.
vehemently disagrees.
No.
I was gonna say, who do we think would have gotten broken up with? Like, we are in the league together. So what number are we? Like, did they break my heart first, or what do you think?
Oh, you're a first love. I could see you being a first love. Your teddy bearness and
Yeah,
all that stuff.
right?
Maybe I could go with that.
Things
I think
get complicated.
I think Darcy probably would be. I think Darcy and I would probably both be some sort of fling. I'd probably be the university fling, and he would be the
I was thinking around the
concert
same
fling.
time. Yeah,
The concert
Oh,
fling.
concert
you know?
fling
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Darcy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's always having flings at concerts, so I hear. But you know what? There is a lot to talk about with this review, and it's super exciting that we're back in the world of Scott Pilgrim. So with all that said, let me get to the synopsis for the series so we can just start gushing over how much we enjoyed it. So Scott Pilgrim meets the girl of his dreams, Ramona Flowers, and discovers he must defeat her 7 evil exes in order to date her. But this time, things get even more complicated. Based on the graphic novels by Bryan Lee O'Malley, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off revisits and reimagines the beloved cult classic, taking Ramona Flowers, her evil exes, Scott, and his friends off on a mysterious, new, action-packed journey to find love. Directed by Abel Gongora with animation by Science Saru, the series stars Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Satya Baba, Kieran Culkin, Chris Evans, Anna Kendrick, Brie Larson, Allison Pill, Aubrey Plaza, Brandon Ruth, Jason Schwartzman, Johnny Simmons, Mark Webber, Mae Whitman, and Ellen Wong. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is streaming exclusively on Netflix, with all episodes out right now. So as you're listening to this, you can hear our thoughts and then jump right into the series. To keep things spoiler-free, we really can't talk about the story at all, other than to say, like, I think we can collectively say we enjoyed it, the direction they took things, and ultimately I can say what it says in the plot summary, which is that things do get more complicated. But with that said, we can certainly gush over, what I think all three of us will agree on, which is that Science Saru absolutely nailed the look of this anime. It's the original Bryan O'Malley artwork, but realized in animation, and it works so flawlessly.
It was brought to life so well.
It's exactly what you'd expect it to look like. If you've ever seen the cover of any of these books or any single one of these panels, it's that come to life.
Exactly. I think that the artwork and the design language, if you will, of this world is so reminiscent, or is entirely inspired by, the graphic novel, and it shows in every little way. But where it goes further is with just its choreography, its fight sequence, its detail.
Oh yeah,
to those elements that really elevate this in the visual medium. It's taking those designs and that look and going further with it, which again, Science Saru, they deserve all the flowers for what they did here with the
all
design.
the Ramona Flowers.
All the Ramona Flowers, because honestly it is absolutely beautiful, and that's really one of the biggest parts of what makes this work so well. on top of so many other things. But the look and feel of this is outstanding.
Science Saru, when it was announced that they were handling the animation, I was immediately excited. Coming off one of their more recent projects, Devilman Crybaby, but also one of their first projects was an Adventure Time episode about the birds and the bees, and the way they push the boundaries with animation. And Meg has talked about it before on the podcast about the character shapes, and Science Saru has always done an amazing job at playing with those shapes while really stretching the boundaries. And again, the way that they brought the comic to life so well, but then also even some of the physical stuff, because it is in motion, they even pulled from the movie, which is also an incredible source of everything for this movie. Like this, the series is so good at just bringing the source material to life in such a new and exciting way.
Yeah, there's so much confidence in the look of that artwork of the original art, and it's just so expertly replicated. And I love the visual language of Scott Pilgrim, of the world in general. It's so bouncy, it's so delightful, and it's awesome to see Toronto and you know, different versions of like the TTC or their version of Second Cup called First Cup.
There was a Second Cup there though too.
There's so many little. Oh, there's also a Second Cup.
There's a Second Cup and then there's a First Cup. Yeah, they nailed everything. Even for like, we're from Toronto, to catch all the Toronto isms in it. You're absolutely right. Like it pulls from the original movie in the sort of the visual style. So the way the streets of Toronto look, but like you see a Queen Video-esque store emulated in this show. You see Second Cup, First Cup, you see Spadina Station, you see like the Sky Dome, you see the churches. Like there's a church.
Honest Ed's pops up, man. Like
Honest Ed's is in
such
there,
a staple
right?
to the story, and you see it and you're like, I have been there, and it is just as chaotic as they make it out to be.
There's a church that's featured that you see on the streets, and I'm just like, I've been into that church, I've been inside that church. So they covered all the corners of Toronto really, really well. And to your point, Nate, the confidence in how they've emulated the graphic novel into this animated form just bleeds into the world building elements in and around the characters, because it's like, for Toronto fans, they're going to love it. They're going to love just seeing it just as much as, we loved seeing Toronto featured in Turning Red. This in itself has its own unique style that still feels 100% inspired by Toronto. It's gorgeous world building.
100%. And I think, video game fans in general, I think even if you haven't experienced anything from Scott Pilgrim before, there's, the title sequence starting off with like press start on every episode title sequence, or the way that like every A in the font is a Triforce from The Legend of Zelda. Just, it's these little tiny details that just, the smile from my face could not go down. And I just think it's absolutely fantastic. They also play with different styles as well in the different episodes. There's everything from a 32-bit art style at times to even cinematic camera shots, or it's interesting to see like blur done, like frame blur and different aspects of like how they've got the bokeh effect in certain situations with animation. It's just not something that I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, again, it just, all of that feels so inspired by anime. Do you know what I mean? Like anime is definitely is infused in this. Just like the movie kind of took its own live action approach to bringing anime into the movie, this series very much takes the graphic novel and then that style and breathes an anime life into it to really elevate it even that much more. Around like just character looks, it's more about, again, as we were talking about, some of the angles, the choreography, and some of this fighting and whatnot. But just on the note about the video games, like, yeah, this is we know Scott Pilgrim is very much a loving homage to video games in its references, and I just loved how they used it, just like how they did in Edgar Wright's film, where they incorporated it as sound elements. If something was wrong, you would hear that sort of game like negative sound, like right, or things to accent like coins noises and stuff like that for excitement. And I just loved how they didn't lose sight of that. They knew how to layer that in, to your point, from a visual standpoint, Nate, but also from an auditory element, like just to have those little sounds. And like sometimes they're quick, they're really, really quick, and they're just there to just kind of, again, add an accent to a moment. It's done thoughtfully.
And I will say the last thing that I know, and I'm sure, Darcy, you've seen different things that Science Saru have worked on. I think for myself, the last thing that I saw that they worked on that I was really excited about was Star Wars Visions back in Volume 1 when they did Episode 6 and Episode 9. They did Episode 9 Akakiri, but then Abel Gongora, who directed these episodes, directed TOB1 in the first season of Star Wars Visions. And you can see there's such like an excellent blend of that traditional anime, but then the Science Saru look for the characters, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Darcy, because I mean you definitely are anime expert, but I felt like the backgrounds in this looked very like traditional anime, where they're kind of still and don't really move too much, and the characters have a very Science Saru look to them. They do the anime chibi thing at times, where they'll get mad and their heads go giant, or they'll be in love and little hearts will appear in their eyes, and I think it all blends together so seamlessly and moves so smoothly. And I think the last time I was impressed by an adaptation of comic to screen would be Invincible, and I think this lives in it. To me, actually, even I would think this supersedes the sort of the effectiveness of the craft of bringing over. I think it's like, if anyone is wondering how do we take a comic book and turn it into an animation, this is the case study right here.
Again, I think it's a very special thing because Scott Pilgrim, the original art style already had so much life to it that Science Saru didn't really have to do much in terms of character design or anything like that, because Bryan Lee O'Malley did such a great job originally making these characters so fun to play with. And the way they, again, push the boundaries with the shapes and stuff like that, and just the way they go through art styles and really are inspired by the anime, the high frame rate and some of that still background stuff. It's so much fun to watch and such delight. And I don't know, I feel like it'd be hard to recapture this type of magic because it is so special and so uniquely Scott Pilgrim to be an homage to everything nerdy. Because while they don't really talk about it in the series at all, you could tell that Scott, if he was living in our world nowadays, he'd also be a huge weeb like me, just knowing everything about anime and gushing about it just like he gushes about Sonic and stuff. So
for sure,
it's so good.
Yeah, I think again it's that fusion, right? Like you said, Darcy, they didn't have to mess with the visual style that was already established by Bryan Lee. Like, they just went further with it. They injected more cinematic anime style to really bring it to life. And that's what really elevates this entire series. But also just a shout out to Bryan Lee for being involved in this, for, not just, obviously signing over the rights so that they could do it, but he is credited for writing this story. So like, there's another great sort of tangible connection between the original source material and here. And then you also have Edgar Wright, who's producing this as well, who's obviously on board, which is great. Like there's all of these little threads, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the cast and the entire cast that is featured in here, being that they were in the live action movie. It's, this is such a great sense of continuity from that experience. It just feels like it's constantly evolving now, right? Like the story of Scott Pilgrim started as a graphic novel, moved into live action, and now here we are talking about an animated show that just helps to showcase this story in a whole new light.
Well, apparently Edgar approached Bryan Lee O'Malley, and Bryan already had the story ready to go, and was like already on top of it. So it's so incredible. And I think the getting into those performances and talking about the cast, I think the thing with this show is we get to focus on the additional characters so much more than we do at least in the movies, and then Darcy, you were kind of saying even in the books there's a little more that we get here. So we're kind of getting our garlic bread and eating it too with this cast. That's a Scott Pilgrim reference, but it's so cool that we get the sort of the blends of both worlds in the look and the feel of the series, and then the original cast back from the film is just it's too perfect.
Like as soon as anyone starts talking, you're immediately brought back to that the first time you're sitting down watching the movie and being introduced to the characters there, and it's just they're so connected now that like when I went back after watching the series, I immediately went back and reread the graphic novels in color this time, which was a delight because I've only ever read in black and white. But as soon as I was reading them and you see the speech bubbles popping up so like that, you just hear that voice cast, and they are so strong and so confident in these characters. Like it feels like no time has passed at all since they brought them to life in live action, and it's such a good feeling.
Well, there's such an interesting cycle, right? Because you have the graphic novel, then you have the casting of these characters into live action who are now voicing these animated characters that are inspired by the graphic novel. So like it's great, it's crazy to see, like, to hear, Audrey Plaza's voice, attached to the animated version of
Julie
her
Powers,
character.
yeah.
And just to see how her expressions and her mannerisms are animated. Same with Chris Evans, as
Oh.
Lucas Lee, he gets to play, he gets to lean more into that character and really give off a character voice performance, which just it exudes the right amount of cocky, suave style that you would want from him.
But we get to go. The cool thing is, again, we get to see that side of him that we're used to, we expect, but then we also get to see him broken at times too, like where, like, at one point he says, I can't even afford a flight to LA, or first class flight to LA, and it's just it's hilarious. It's he's just everything about the celebrity persona wrapped up in like a young Johnny Bravo type body, and Chris Evans, you can tell he is having a blast in the show as Lucas Lee.
Oh yeah,
so much fun.
Lucas Lee was great too, but I feel like another standout returning cast was Brandon Routh as Todd Ingram.
Oh.
I feel like all the X's got way more screen time in this series, and we got to grow with them a lot more. And it's just the actors clearly had a lot of fun returning them, and then again developed them characters further than what we know, and it was such a delight. Again, Brandon Routh as Todd is always going to make me smile, and yeah, everyone in this cast did a phenomenal job.
A huge shout out to Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Ramona. I think, as we've been talking about, everyone gets a lot more of a focus. And, I again, not having read the graphic novels, being introduced to the movie as the first introduction to the world, and very much loving the movie and having watched it numerous times, I always thought Ramona kind of came off as like the trophy. She's definitely a confident woman, but we don't get enough time with her. But again, like we're saying with the X's, and here with Ramona, we get to spend more time and understand their characters a little bit more outside of just tropes or stereotypes, if you will, of who they are figuratively. We get to understand more of their motives, their intentions, and sort of their heart, if you will, if we could go so far as to say for some of these characters, it's a really nice exploration, and that's also for not just for the X's, but also for the bands from Sex Bomb. We get to see more of them and whatnot. So it's a really great exploration of the characters.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Young Neil stan, and just hearing Johnny Simmons just really play up that dumb, clueless friend of the band again, no time has passed at all, and I feel like he's still just as awkward and unsure of himself as you're supposed to think. He's a young random guy who's just friends with the band and doesn't do anything himself. And I love, again, the way that all the returning members of Sex Bomb clearly care about these characters and wanted to bring them back to life in a new way. And just, again, the time we get to spend with them is so much fun. And I couldn't believe I could love Scott Pilgrim anymore, but this return to the series and this adaptation has made me fall in love with it all over again in ways I didn't even think was possible. And a lot of that comes down to these character performances.
Yeah, Kieran Culkin, I think, is another standout. Brie Larson, I think, was also phenomenal.
I couldn't tell if it was her at times.
At first, right?
Like, yeah, like,
she's so much into that character, right?
Sure, she's definitely putting on, like, again, we talk about it when we talk about animation. There's people that bring sort of an acting chop to their voice, so it's just them, right? But here you can definitely hear that Brie Larson is putting on a character persona that is almost, I think it goes further than what she did in the movie. I haven't rewatched the movie
it's
since
more
watching
extreme.
the series.
It's amped up. It's anime,
exactly
right?
It's anime.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Well, and I think, of course, Michael Cera as Scott is perfectly Scott. But I also wanted to shout out Satya Baba in this show. I think he's awesome as well. He's having, again, much like Chris Evans, he's clearly having such a blast of a time. And I just think this whole cast, there's also, we can't talk about any of them, but there are additional guest stars who are just immediately recognizable when you hear their voice. And it's just, again, similar to the ways that I would just like crack a smile every time I see a little Triforce A in the font. Anytime any one of these these guest stars would pop up, even if it was for a few seconds, it just is so delightful and you can't just help but chuckle and laugh. Obviously we're gushing about all this stuff. I do, before we go any further, I obviously have to bring up the music. It's such a core component of Scott Pilgrim experience, right? And I think Anna Monoguchi and Joseph Trapanese, which I've never heard of the name Joseph Trapanese before, and that's fantastic. But I think they did a phenomenal job, and I think it continues what came before, but it's refreshed, and we're getting new music as well, and it's weaved in so seamlessly as part of the Scott Pilgrim signature, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yes, as part of the signature of this world specifically too, and the show, the Japanese rock vibe really works to help again elevate the anime qualities, but then you get some good needle drops, right? Like there's a Tegan and Sarah song that's featured in this. There's a couple classic songs that are actually featured in this, and I just love that. As we were talking about, that was such a staple to the films, the music and just the presence of music, and like I said, it feels like the music is the heart in a lot of ways, and runs as a constant pulse throughout each of these episodes that serves to really bind them together as in a sort of thread, and I love that attention to again reinvigorating, like you said, Nate, it's reinvigorating that concept of music and the relationship that Scott Pilgrim as a brand and as a story has in relation to it, and just fusing new things like the intro. Man, I never skipped it. I loved it.
No,
it was so good.
Oh yeah, it's so good,
right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a classic anime intro, long as fuck, but but it's so pretty to look at. It's so detailed, and there's just really cool stuff that they do in just that intro that really get you hyped for the episode, and then the music is just popping, man. It's so good.
I mean, I regularly listen to the soundtrack from the movie, and I know that when I do that, I'll also be adding the soundtrack from this series, because it again captures Sex Bob-omb in a whole new light. They've again, this adaptation has been clearly modernized a lot in some ways, just because time has passed since the original graphic novel was released, and some of those jokes are a bit dated, but it still manages to. The audience now will be still into the music because it still feels so against the grain and not your normal contemporary pop music. It is that raw, unapologetic kind of sex. We are Sex Bob-omb. We're 1, 2, 3, 4. They just kick off and like punch you in the face with it. I love it so much, and the fact that a lot of those needle drops you mentioned are from Canadian artists too. Like everything about this series is just so unapologetically Canadian, and it goes down to the music, and that just again that's the core of the series. When you're introduced to the Sex Bob-omb in the comics, it's with a song with a chord progression. It tells you can play too. It doesn't matter if you're bad. Sex Bob-omb is bad too. So like the fact that has carried on through every iteration of this story is incredible. And this series does a great job of bringing that to life.
Yeah, I love that you called out the Canadian musicians. I think Emily Haynes is featured in this from Metric at one specific point. I won't say when, but it was so identifiable when her voice kicked in. I was like, oh, that's awesome, right? And then definitely to see her name as attached to the credits, it was nice. And yeah, I love that, again, as much as we're talking about this sort of Japanese anime infused pop culture spectacle, there's a lot of Canadianisms in it. Like there's a lot of little Canadian touches that I just appreciate so much, because it goes further than just putting in a landscape that is Toronto, having the CN Tower and some buildings and stuff like that. There are actual references. Like I'm pretty sure I caught a Cineplex reference.
Oh yeah.
Know what I mean? And obviously Cineplex is a multi-level word. Like it means movie theaters in some ways, but here that is the brand in Canada. That is the brand of movie theater. So I enjoy that there's those things. Like for some people it'll just be a word, but for us it means so much more as Canadians. So yeah, shout out to them for nailing all of those Canadianisms in there.
Absolutely. So obviously we enjoyed it. Is there anything
24 minutes in, and I think we enjoyed it. Yeah.
Is there anything about this series that didn't work for you, or think maybe even if it's not for you, or just overall in general, that might not work for different audiences?
I'm wondering if like, I don't know, for myself, and I say this only because I think it's probably the most likely is maybe pacing for certain things, but I think, like, in my opinion, the pacing was pretty good. I just don't know how many people are gonna really be attuned. Like you said, Darcy, it's a little more modernized and stuff like that. So I think if people have an existing experience with maybe anime and with animated shows, they may feel comfortable with it. But I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of people that maybe like the movie and then might jump into something like this that, you know, might not be familiar with animation or might not be something that they always go to. How well are they? How much are they going to enjoy the pacing of the story and sort of the way things sort of linger? You know how anime kind of lingers on things and kind of longingly stays on focus on certain things. There's a lot. There's some of that that exists in the show, and I think rightfully so. Again, given the sort of mixing of genres that we see throughout the series. But yeah, like I could probably see that. And for me though, I didn't have a problem with it. I'm just wondering, is there anything? Could that be something that people might have an issue with?
Again, to me, I feel like that there might be people who have an issue with it, but I feel like it'd be very hard to, because of the way that they are so faithful to the source material, and how, even if they're coming off a fan of the movie, Edgar Wright loves the story too, and a lot of what he was doing in his the film was coming straight from the pages, and like the jokes, the humor, the shots, how he sets things up are all from just what Bryan Lee O'Malley originally told. So I feel like that alone will, the connection to that story has been so strong in every iteration that if you want to watch a Scott Pilgrim story, you'll be able to get into it, I think, because the characters are still the same and the story and the heart is still there, just like it is in that movie and the original graphic novel and the video game. Because again, that was a classic, like a beloved video game.
Shout
which,
out
again,
to Ubisoft on that one.
Brings up that same fight style that we see even in one little in a little snippet of the episode, but like takes you back to the fans of the game too, which is really cool. It brings everything that came before it and takes it to the next level. So I don't know. I have a hard time seeing people who like Scott Pilgrim not liking the show.
For sure. I just, and even just to go off of the idea of the film, like Edgar Wright has a very breakneck speed sort of editing style, and that movie moves. Like a lot of people even say the pacing's too fast for them.
Too fast.
So in contrast to that, this show definitely, again, as I was saying, brings in a lot more of that anime style where there might be a little bit more longing, pause, you know, staying on focus on things rather than that sort of snip, cut, moving around really quickly. There is a little bit of that, and I think that more just is in purpose to call back to the movies very lovingly. But in a lot of ways, I think this is a alternate genre from that. So I'm wondering how people will adapt. But I agree. I think if Scott Pilgrim fans, like if you're a fan of Scott Pilgrim, you're gonna fucking love this.
No matter
like,
what.
You're gonna watch it. You're gonna watch it twice back to back.
Yeah, and then read all the books and then watch the movie
and then go back and watch the show.
Exactly. Do everything Darcy did. Yeah. But no, I think I agree with you though, Justin. I did feel a little bit of that. I am not as huge of an anime fan in particular, and I think that's going to be something that you have to remember with this series. It's not just an animated show; it's an anime in every sense of the word, and I think for a lot of people that'll be for the better, and then I think for a few folks they will feel a little bit of like, this is not what I'm used to with like a Saturday morning animated cartoon, you know, in the West. So I think that is the only thing that I did notice. I think if you're gonna watch this show, binge it. I think it's better to binge this series rather than go, you know, or even if you want to sit down and do like 2 or 3 episodes at a time. I would just say if this was a weekly release, I definitely could see people falling off throughout the series.
Yes.
That's the only thing that I felt is I'm stoked to get to the next episode because I have it right here. I just feel like for myself personally, if this was a week to week and there were other shows happening, it could have been something that would have fallen by the wayside. Yeah,
it would get lost. But I think it's a great call out. This is the best example of bingeable content. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole point of what this show is, these 8 episodes, it's meant to be binged. It's not meant to like you can take your time with it. But to your point, Nate, if you did and then something else distracts, then you may not go back. But I think if you're hooked after, you know, the first 2 or 3 episodes even, then just keep going with it, right? Because you'll start to really, like, even after the first episode, I was like, okay, like I'm in, right? And because it nailed everything that you would want. And again, that's obviously probably going to be different from person to person. But yes, I totally agree. I think that this is a great example of bingeable content. Just watch it.
Just watch it. But before you watch it, let's give you our final thoughts and rating for this show. which we're gonna rate on a scale of 1 to 5 evil X's. So Darcy, let's hear it.
I mean, mine's going to be pretty short and sweet. I already said that I love Scott Pilgrim to begin with, and I didn't think I could love it more, but this series has surprised me in that I love it more than I thought I could, and it's so good. So yeah, easy the 5 out of 5 evil X's from me, because everything about this is so perfectly done. It is the best adaptation of a comic to date, I think. It's so good.
Yeah. Justin.
Yeah. Like I'm with Darcy. I think this is incredibly dope. This is fantastic. It's so well done from a story standpoint, from a visual standpoint, and really, honestly, most of why I love this show or this series has to do with its visuals.
Mm-hmm.
Science Saru knocked it out of the park. Adopting all of the visual language and style established in the graphic novels and just elevating it, taking it to a whole new level, infusing more of a cinematic anime style that just feels so amped up, and it's filled with excitement. It's colorful, it's poppy. The music is off the hook. It's such a great fusion. We talked about the performances and the entire voice cast from the live action making their appearances here. So great to see that sort of, I guess, Ouroboros, if you will, sort of in a way. But also, if you get a chance, I watched a little bit of some episodes in Japanese, which really does, again, bring that elevated elevated anime style into the fold. So I think that the fact that they would do that, and the fact that they give you that opportunity to experience it that way, could be something. If you're an anime fan who likes to watch your anime with traditional Japanese, you can do that. So I love that, because they're all credited in there as giving the voice actors. So it'd be very interesting to see, again, more and more people watching it in that vein. But yeah, this is great. I think I'm going to probably be giving it a 5 out of 5 strictly because it visually it nails so much. And I was blown away, man. I really enjoyed this. I feel like I want to go back and watch it again. And I think, like you, Darcy, I kind of want to do a deep dive and go watch the movie again, and maybe actually finally read the graphic novels, because I've always said that I wanted to. So yeah, 5 out of 5.
Cool. All right. I think as I said, I'm a fan of Scott Pilgrim in this world. I think, like you said, Justin, earlier, like if you are a fan of the original Bryan Lee O'Malley comics, you are going to adore this series. This is the year for animation. This is the year for streaming animation. There's so many incredible animated projects that we've gotten to dig into this year alone. And I think it's also an incredible year for video games. And if you fall into the Venn diagram of animation and video games, the style of this show is going to have you hooked, even if you've never even heard of Scott Pilgrim. I think the music, the performances are equally perfect, and they carry that signature style of the movie over into this expertly crafted animation from Science Saru. So yeah, I'm going to be giving Scott Pilgrim Takes Off a very solid 4.5 out of 5 evil X's. I think the only thing that could possibly keep you back is the sort of the accessibility. If you're not necessarily a wholehearted anime fan, you're going to feel that a little bit, and you're either going to like it or it's not going to be for you. But I think, yeah, I mean, if I was to give the animation alone a score, 100%, it's a 5 out of 5. But I think for that little bit of that inaccessibility from an audience standpoint, I'm gonna ding it a little bit. But yeah, 4.5 out of 5 evil X's for sure. This show was so much fun. But that is it for this spoiler-free review of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this series or any of the shows or movies we cover, well, I'm going to challenge Justin to a fight, and if he wins, he can let you know how you can reach us.
They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
I'm respawning in for round 2 to tell you to join. I love how we could probably edit in actual noises here, but no, we're gonna go.
When we can make the noises, yeah, it's all natural.
We're the best. But I'm respawning in to tell you that you got to join our Discord using the link in our description. We're talking about, all the different series that we cover, and I think it would be fun to maybe open up a Discord channel for this show as well. So once you've watched it, we can talk about it. We can talk about kind of the complicated aspect to the story as we read in the description. And keep in mind, we also have a ton of other episodes covering recent releases with our spoiler-free reviews for Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, Next Goal Wins, The Hunger Games: A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, The Marvels, then another amazing animated Netflix series called Blue Eye Samurai that you got to check out, Invincible Season 2 Part 1 over on Amazon, and of course back to Netflix, David Fincher's The Killer. We've got reviews for all of those. We also have some really great interviews out now, like our most recent interview with the team behind Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, including visual effects supervisor Sean Conrad, executive producer and director Matt Shackman, executive producer Matt Fraction, who's in the comic book world. If you know your stuff, you know Matt Fraction, and of course showrunner Chris Black. Justin discusses the rock star nature of Godzilla and even asks Matt Shackman about the Fantastic Four. So be sure to check out those interviews and all of our interviews either here on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. We just wrapped our watch club for Loki Season 2 with our final episode where we were joined by Matt Rohrabeck of the Untitled Movie Podcast. We got deep into our thoughts and theories on what's next for Loki, everyone at the TVA, and the MCU at large. So with that said, Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for being my player 2 and my player 3 on this very animated review. And as we say, love ya.
Laters.
Peace.
You win.